boy. Welcome to another edition of Real Spit from a Gangsta Gone Legit. Before we get started, I want you to hit that like and smash that subscribe button. Yo, today we got my man Mike Curry, aka Mikey. What's up, homie?
Ain't know what's going on.
Oh man, it ain't nothing, man. Glad you could be a part of this platform.
Thank you.
That's what's up, man. So listen, man, I want to get right into it, man, and let the people know basically who Mike Curry is. Who are you and where you from?
Mike Curry is an author and entrepreneur. But before I became an author and entrepreneur, I was heavy into the streets. I'm from the Grove Hall area, specifically Castlegate Road. I came out the house around 12, 13 years old, which was 89, 90. And you know, when I came out, we had our own crew and we did our own thing. We was trying to be independent of the older generation because we wanted to carve a name for ourselves and turn ourselves from boys to men at an early age. So once we was able to understand what being a boy was and understood how we become boys to men, it was sky's the limit.
So you came up. So basically, Mike is part of the gang that I grew up under. Castlegate. We were from the same crew. I'm from a different generation. But my question to you from the rip would be, if you knew what that life was like from the first generation, watching us be idiots and knuckleheads and do all the shit we did, what made you want to follow suit?
It was a few things that it wasn't just me. Like I said, we came out as a crew. So it was 13, 14 of us that hung together regularly. So we seen what y'all was doing. We seen what the older heads was doing. It was the magnetic attraction. It was the fear that was given off, the glory, the respect, the money that was being made, the jewelry, the leather coats. I'm talking about the Truth coats, the Adidas leather suits, and you know, we grew up poverty stricken, so we wanted better for us. So that's why we created our own crew, where we created our own block at the corner of Blue Hill and Seaver Street, where we was able to hustle without interruption from the older generation.
Right, I get you. Now, I know, I just wanted to ask that question. I mean, I already knew the answer, man. We all went through it. You know, I came off the porch myself at 13, so I know what you're talking about. And I'm sure as we get into the story later on, we can talk about when you became that man that you just mentioned, you know, going from that boy to man. I'm sure that you learned a lot of things in that time. So we'll hit on that. But since we're gonna keep it back in the early 80s, so we're saying 89 was about the time when Boston was pretty much the murder capital of the world. There was a lot of violence going on at the time, and there was still the crack epidemic, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure you were part of that, right?
Yes, exactly.
So not only was you gang banging, you was hustling.
I was hustling.
And what was your hustle?
We were hustling crack. You know, gems. You know, we was on 8 balls, quarters, halves. You know, little stuff like that. We was hustling to get fresh. We was hustling to get new Adidas from Alpha Mega or Harry Degree. We was hustling to get Adidas track suits, winter coats, and leather coats, and you know, we was hustling to be fly, not for the women, just to be fly.
Right. Okay. So now your name rung a lot of bells in your generation. You was definitely known to be active, and you know, you was that dude. Let's talk a little bit about that time phase. So we're in the 80s, and it, like at that time, it was a lot of smoke. It was different than it is today. There was a lot of smoke out there. Not to downplay anything that's going on today, because of course it's serious out there now too. But it was just different in the 80s, man. Like every day you had to be ready for war. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Because you know, like I said before, when we came out, we created our own crew. We was called the Grove Hall Magics, and at that time, the Grove Hall Magics, our intent was to take over the whole Grove Hall, excluding Castlegate.
Oh, okay.
So, and the older generation allowed us to do that. So we had their backing, which was a strong force, because if anybody know about Castlegate in the 80s, then they know how feared and respected that neighborhood was.
Right.
So by us being a younger generation coming up, we was bent on doing our own thing, but we still pay respect to the older generation. So we inherited the smoke that they had, which was approved from a few streets over. We started beefing with the younger generation, just out of love and admiration for the older generation.
Right. Not even knowing where our beef originated from or came from, y'all just went right in and picked up from where we left off at.
Nah, yeah, exactly. And we never knew. I found out that the beef was over something petty like a bike. I found out that while I was incarcerated.
A bike is one, but there was one even pettier than that, and I'll give it to you right now. There was also one, a big fight started over a tape recorder, brother. A tape recorder, you know what I'm saying? So when you look back at it, now we're older, so we can see that, and we'll get into that, like I said, later. But you know, when you look at it from where we are today, that shit was silly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So take me to what I want to know. What led you into being incarcerated? Because I know that you did some time in prison.
Okay, so you know, when I was young, I became incarcerated at a very young age. Like I said before, I came out the house at 13, so kind of immediately I got into a life of crime. And you know, after a while, I became incarcerated, did the DYS juvenile thing, all the way
How
up
much
to.
time did you do in DYS?
I mean, I did it all, man. I did 7 to 9s. I did 3 to
And
5.
DYS?
Yeah. And I'm talking about 7 to 9 months because they wasn't giving years like
Right.
that. So,
Right.
and you know, every time I got incarcerated in juvenile, I was already committed, so I had to wait in juvenile until the case was over. So, you know, I did from 14, 15 to 18, you know, not straight, but throughout them years, I was in and out of juvenile. And that's how a lot of people at that age knew of me, because me being incarcerated and me just being me.
So that's where you basically started building your name, was inside the juvenile halls?
Exactly. You know, and I'm not a troublemaker. I never was a troublemaker, but I've always been respected because I've always been me.
I got you.
So a lot of people demand respect and want to be fair, but that's never was my intent. My intent was to be respected by not some, by all.
Right. And that's commendable, as you should be. So you did the juvenile, you did different stints in juvenile. Okay. Now, after juvie, you graduated, of course, to prison.
Immediately.
Okay, so what led to that?
Okay, so I got out of juvenile around 17 and a half. A few months later, I got arrested for drugs and went straight to Nash. You know, I try to play the game like I'm in juvenile custody, so they called the juvenile detention. They said they ain't want me no more. They was done with me, so I'm like, wow. So, you know, I had to make bail. I made bail, then immediately caught another case. And then I was there for a few months, made bail on that. And then that was the beginning of my adult career of being in prison.
Okay, so how long were you there?
I ended up getting probation, and then I violated the probation, caught a shooting case, and I caught a shooting case. That violated my probation. I did a year in South Bay. After I did the year in South Bay, I got out on bail for a drug case and the shooting case, and ended up catching a gun case.
So the cases started accumulating.
Yeah, they started to accumulate
As they do.
fast. And you know, the reason why they started to accumulate, because the Boston police was on my neck. You know, they wanted me. They wanted me bad. And it was to the point where I was getting harassed by one Pacific cop, and then getting harassed by all the cops, because I believed that they were screaming my name within the police precinct, that they wanted me off the streets, you know, for reasons unknown. You know, some say I know the reasons, but I'm gonna say it's unknown.
Okay, well, this is real spit from the Gangsta Gone Legit. I'm not gonna accept that answer from you, because at some point we have to acknowledge what we do, and I think this is that point. So let the people know, because you know why they want your back.
Yeah.
You don't have to be specific, but just let them know that, you know, because that's part of putting that behind you anyway. Let them know that, you know, why they was on your back.
There was a lot of violent crime that was going on in the area.
And you were part of it.
And once you become known to the police, or become known as a person in your neighborhood, then anything that happened, it'd be Mikey in them,
right,
or Paris in them, or such and such in them. Even if you wasn't the trigger man, even if you wasn't the one that stabbed the person, your name's still being mentioned. So they wanted questions that I wasn't willing to answer.
Right.
That's why they was on my back, and I wasn't giving them the answers
that they wanted.
So every time they came around my neighborhood, they harassed me more than anyone else. And I'm talking about situations like, I might come from Macy's downtown, and as soon as I hit the block, the detectives pull up the silver bullet. They pull up, jump out, and take my bag and tell me to tell my mother to come get it.
Wow.
Knowing that my mother is not gonna come get the bag. So,
right. So they taking you, they jacking you.
It was harassments like that, and other types of harassments. Whereas one time they dismissed my case without prejudice, and then they seen me on Castlegate, and then they reopened the case because they said I'm still selling drugs. Right. But this is the street that I grew up on, and this is an area that I grew to love.
Right.
So why can't I hang with my family and friends without being harassed?
Right.
So the cases started to accumulate, and they all was from the same police officer.
Wow.
So that same police officer made me a career criminal by the charges that he was able to arrest me and convict me for.
And that's what they were doing at that time, period. They did it to all of us.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. I can relate to that. You said Silver Bullet. I had Bobby Murner.
Bobby Murner was one of the ones too. At the time, Bobby Murner wasn't in the Silver Bullet. He was in like a dark blue detective car. So, you know, he didn't harass me. It was, you know, a cop named Podface. You know, Gerard Bailey. He's like a gold badge now. And I'm surprised he ain't retired. Like, I'm being honest, you know. And I'm going to tell you something a little later that came back to haunt me. And this is what made me change my way of thinking.
Okay.
Regarding that police officer.
Okay. So, that's ironic, man, how, look at this, two different generations in the same bullshit rules, the same game, they use the same tactics that they used against us on you all, you know what I mean? Like I would give you a quick story about harassment. One day I'm thinking I'm slick, so I paint my car. It was beige and brown, right? It was a Maxima, and this is 87. And Maximas are hot at the time, right? I painted red, so, and I tint the window, so I'm thinking as soon as I take it out the shop, no one knows it's me, right? I'm not thinking about the plate, of course, right? But I'm driving and going into the academy, so this is when academies and Castlegate merge, and we all hanging together, right? So I'm pulling in the academies, bro, and the police that I was talking about, they pull up and they hit the back of the car. You know, my mother's in the car, and I'm on federal at the time. I'm on federal bail, so they're trying to get me to violate so that they can bring me back, and they didn't want us on the street. Yeah. And they did the same sucker shit like you talking about, but they didn't know she was in the car. So they go ahead and they hit the back of the car. I go to jump out. What the fuck you doing? You know, wow. And I tell my mother don't get out the car yet. It was just coming from court too. So she don't get out the car. She wait till they come in and they pull their guns out. And as they pull their guns out, they're coming up on me to, you know, harass me, you know, try to scare me, whatever the shit they were. Yeah. But they came on when she did. I told her to get out, so she gets out and she starts screaming on me, you know, to stop harassing. She's going, you know, she's gonna make sure that they are reported, you know, shit like that, right? And it was crazy how they would do us back in the day. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And I too, later on in life, was able to, believe it or not, I was able to when I got out, I had a conversation with them, man, when I changed, and it was like a mutual respect from that point on. Like, they changed their ways, they let me be, you know what I'm saying? But that was way later, but I know exactly what you went through. But anyway, man, they're suckers, man, you know, that's what they did, man, you know. But I want to get back to you, man. I just had to share that because when you were talking about it, it reminded me of that story and how much harassment we went through. But that was, and that, of course, that's one of many times that I'm sure you've been harassed.
Exactly. And you know, at the time, you know, he was the main one harassing me, but also it was the black detectives harassing me too. Right. And I knew that the game was over for me when I got caught with the gun, and I was in the police. They had me in the gang unit. Every time I used to get arrested, before they bring me to the police station, they bring me to the gang unit on Warren Street. I never understood why though. I'm like, man, why they always? And they would have me handcuff one arm to the table, and they'd be questioning me. I don't know nothing. So it was like, why they always bringing me here? So the last time when I got caught with the gun, and they brought me there, it's like they was cheering that because they never caught me with a gun. It was only drugs before that. So they was cheering. Oh yeah, we got Mike Curry. Yeah, we got him with a gun. So I'm like, they act like it's over. I ain't gonna do nothing but make bail. So when I was in there, they said call the officer Greg Brown. He was another. I was getting harassed by Pieface in the daytime and Greg Brown at night.
They took turns, bro.
Yeah, so it was like, yo, I can't
crazy.
win.
Right,
And I didn't act, I was 18 at the time. I didn't know why, it was frustrating me, and I used to go in the house early to evade the harassment and stuff like that. So when I got arrested for the gun and Greg Brown came in, that's when I learned that it was game over because they said the feds were gonna have a field day.
Right. What they was doing, bro, is they were trying to set up stack against you. They were setting up the charges.
And it worked.
So when the feds came, you know what I mean? You look worse than you were.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
That's what it was.
That's what they do.
That's what it was.
Right. So, damn, respect. So, okay, so now at this point, you're 18. So is this when you go into the state prison system?
Well, I was 18. Actually, I was 18 when I caught the attempt murder. I was 19 when I got caught with the gun because I did a year in South Bay. I spent my birthday in South Bay.
So
I turned 19.
How many bids did you do count before you went upstate?
I got violated for probation at 18 and went from 18 to 19.
Okay, so that was
from 19. I was out for like 4 to 6 months. I was out for 6 months, and then I got arrested for the gun. So I had the open attempt murder, the gun, and an open drug charge.
Okay.
They gave me $50,000 bill with a detainer.
Okay, that's weird.
I couldn't get off. Right. I couldn't get out, even if I had the bail money. So I'm like, all right. 4 months later, I pled out to a 5-year to 7-year sentence, all ran concurrent. But I didn't understand. I didn't know at the time that my neighborhood was under federal watch. So when I pled out in February of '98, the feds came 4 months later, indicted me along with 55 other people, and they picked up the drug charge that I got caught with prior, that I pled out to. They picked that up, and I also served a few CIs and undercover agents. So I was doing, and then they used my priors against me that I just pled out for the gun and the attempt murder.
Right, and that's why they were. That's exactly why they were stacking your case.
And no matter of fact, I turned 20 now. So now the judge I had was like, "Yo, you the youngest person that I ever seen with a record as horrible as yours."
Yeah.
Remind you, I'm 20 years old and I'm practically a career criminal.
Right.
What ain't made me a career criminal was the drug charge I was doing time for in the state.
Yeah.
The feds picked it up, so it was under the same thing. So they couldn't use that.
So did the feds sentence you under that? Correct?
Oh, nah, they didn't sentence me under. Nah,
did they
the
use
first
that
time,
for?
nah. The first time, nah. They just gave. I pled out to 10 years. Yeah, at 20 years old, I pled out to 10 years.
So you did. How much time did you do in the 10 years?
I did 9 years because I had to do the 5 to 7 years in the state. Then they gave me parole. And once I got the parole, I finished the time in the feds.
Hold on. Did I hear you right? Did you just say the first time you did 10 years?
Yeah.
So there's another bit after that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold on. All right. So you did 10 years. You get out. Take me there. You get out. And how old are you when you get out?
28.
28 years old.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
28.
So you come home. What do you do from there?
When I came home,
I mean, you don't change at this point, obviously.
I tried to get a job, and I had a job and stuff like that, but I wasn't mature enough to depend on the money from the job. So I was so used to making money, and then, to be honest, I felt like I was missing something. I felt like the streets really didn't know who I was, and that was a silly way of thinking, because they knew how I was, but I felt like they needed to know more about me.
Wow. Okay, so you felt at this point you still had to prove some more to the streets.
Yeah,
same
but
one
not
from the streets that don't love us at all. But you
Yup.
had to give that one more, you know, I gotta let my name ring out this motherfucker, right?
Yeah,
That
but
little-
not really on violence, but for making money. Like, because before I went in, it was me and a few others that was the known figures making money on my block. So I always gloated about that while I was incarcerated.
Mhm.
The reason why I gloated about it when I was incarcerated in the state, because people that I knew reminded me of it.
Yeah, I think I heard someone mention you at one point as money making Mike. Something that was like, man, this dude be getting it, man. So
Yeah.
I mean, okay, you know what? For you know, the people out there, they get intrigued by this. Let them know what you was making weekly when you were at your peak at one time. Give them an example of what you was making weekly.
Well, when I was at my peak, was after I got out from the state prison. I mean, from federal prison, my first bit. You know, after I got out, you know, I was able to, you know, go up out of state, up in Maine, and, you know, lock down a few cities and towns up there, and, you know, making upwards of 100.
100 what, brother? I know you're not talking about 100,000.
Nah, I mean, yeah, it sounds like that, you know.
Something like that?
Yeah, something
Is that right?
that. You know, I was able to do that.
Money
you know,
making Mike, huh?
Yeah, but you know, I'm not saying that I made that type of money during my
Throughout,
whole
right,
duration.
right.
Like I had to
You had to run.
Yeah, I had to like risk my freedom to make money like that. So it was like I had 2 tenures up there. I had the tenure when I first started, all the way until I caught a trafficking case. Like,
So how soon after you getting out at 28 did you catch your second bit?
man, like, okay, it was something that happened before the second bid. So what happened was I got out in November. By June, I was back in jail.
Wait a minute. So you was only had a few months, bro?
Yeah, hold on, hear me out. I made bail and went back to Maine. Beat the case. And I was getting it. It wasn't nothing stopping me from getting it the way I wanted to get it. Because I was angry. Now I was angry. I like, you locked me up in Boston. I wasn't hustling in Boston. So now I'm going to make Maine pay for what Boston did.
So you went back to Maine, and now you start just
Yeah.
opening up shop.
No
crazy.
holds barred, yeah.
Yeah.
I strategized a plan, came up with thoughts and ideas, and put it to work. But by me being a generous, a nice person that I am, I brought people up there that didn't have the same mindset as me. And I happened to get this shit in the stick. I ended up getting locked up again, and I was hit with the correct criminal, and I was forced to take 16 years.
16 years was the second time?
Yeah, the second
Damn.
time. But I was happy to take it because they were trying to give me 30.
Right.
So 16 years.
Isn't that something
30.
how we play with our lives, man? We're happy to take 15 years instead of 30. Or, you know what I mean? But it's still 15 years or 16 years. It's
Yeah.
crazy, man, but it's part of the lifestyle, man, you know?
Yeah.
16 years. Okay, so now when you did the 16 years, is this still state or is this federal now?
No, it started state, but what happened, the feds picked it up a couple months later, in which I knew they was going to do. I mean, and that's why I said I'm going to revisit what happened with the cop. So while it was state, my lawyer come see me one day. You know, they don't know nothing about me in Maine. Nothing. They only know my name. So lawyer come see me one day, and he was like, hey, man, I don't know what you did in Boston or what's going on, but an officer named, you know, Gerard Bailey called up here and said that we should refer your case to the feds because if it was in Boston, they would have did it. So I'm like, what?
Wow.
Only I know how that felt going back to myself. Like, my past haunted me in a way where I'm incarcerated in another state, and the same cop that made me convicted criminal called up there and told them to do this, and they did it.
You said only you knew how that made you feel. Let us know how that made you feel.
It made me feel weak. It made me feel like it wasn't worth it. You know, it made me feel like, what am I doing? It made me think about my mother, like, you know, because I know how the feds play, and they don't play fair. So when he said refer me to the feds, and my lawyer was like, what did you do? Like, asking me. And I'm like, damn, like, he want me that bad that he want me just to go to feds. but he knew that I was careered out.
So, in essence, that cop really played a role, from what I'm hearing right now, in your thought process of changing your life. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, he did. You know, when I first got incarcerated, of course, just like everybody that get incarcerated and they freshly off the streets, they still thinking about coming up, still thinking about when they get out, they want to do this and do that. So that thought entertained my mind probably for like 7 years, me getting out, trying one more run, trying to, sell drugs and stuff like that. So after the 7th year, I sat back and thought, like, damn, I still got 9 years left. I'm not sure. So now it made me think about what can I do to make money on a legit tip. Okay, getting a job, that was the #1 option. But what would I do with the money once I get the job? Like, a lot of people get jobs and spend money on clothes, cars, houses, females, and stuff like that. That wasn't nothing to me. That thought didn't entertain my mind because I had all the clothes. I had the Vizus, Red Monkeys. Anybody that knew me knew I had mountains of that stuff. And I'm talking about jeans that cost $600, $700, $800.
Right.
Gucci sneakers, bathing apes. I mean, I had it all, like, in the cars. We had all the nice cars and stuff like that. I mean, I had it. But when I got locked up, all that stuff went away. Right. The females that I once entertained went away.
So the ones you once entertained,
they wasn't entertaining me no more. So now it's like, would I get out and do the same things that I did in the past to appease people and to look different so people could talk about me? Nah, I'm not doing that. So now I have to sit back and think. Now I'm on year 8. Year 9 come. I start learning about entrepreneurship. So I'm like, okay, so now I'm learning about entrepreneurship. It excites me.
Well, hold on. Before you fast forward to there, let me take you back a little bit because that was one of my questions I did want to ask you. So you just gave a hint that it was in the 9th year that you started thinking of changing your life altogether. So my question was going to be, what was it that made you change?
Sick and tired of living my old life. Just sick and tired of disappointing myself. Sick and tired of just being incarcerated and feeling no one cares. You know, just sick and tired of being dependent on people to send me money. Being dependent on people for visits. Being dependent on people for mail. Being dependent on people, period. That's what made me change my way of thinking because I'm all like, either I'm going to do this for the rest of my life or I'm going to get out and be dependent on myself. That's what made me change my way of thinking. So I isolated myself from all those that I was incarcerated with from Boston that was on the BS, the troublemakers, the shit starters, the goons. So because my level of intellect was different from theirs, I was striving to learn and do and be better, while they were striving to remain. I mean, they was remaining who they was on the street, and they wanted people nationally to know who they are. Because when you're in the feds, it might not be that many people from Boston with you. It might be 5 or 6, but you got 300 people from New York, 800 from DC. So you try to appease them by being similar to them or making them laugh by committing acts of violence. And I'd rather have a person come to me and be like, yo, how you start an LLC? Yo, what about business credit? Teach me about that.
So is that something that you learned in prison? Did you start learning about business? Did you take any courses or anything like that?
They really didn't have no courses, to be honest.
Oh, so that was done by the time you went in? Because when I was in, I went to college.
Yeah, no, they ain't have it no more. Because remember, they took when you was there, they had the Pell Grants.
Right.
They took the Pell Grants away around the time I came. So now they just had these courses called ACE courses, adult curriculum education courses, that's taught by students. I mean, by prisoners.
Oh.
So, and the prisoners only could teach you what they allow you to be taught.
Right.
So, I went to a few of them just to so I could get transferred to other prisons and stuff like that.
Right.
But I really didn't learn nothing. So, I seeked out mentors that had it. I was in a prison that had multiple millionaires, a couple billionaires. So I seeked out, and I asked them, can I become a student? Could they become my mentor and I become their protege? And I never, like, if they reject me or deny me, I'm cool with that. But at least I try and I ask them. And every single one I ask, they offer me a slot in the library to teach and train me, and that's who and how I became the man that I am now. While I was in prison, I also became a teacher because the same knuckleheads and the same ones, the goons, they see me. They're like, oh shit, now they coming to me. Like, yo, teach me about this. Yo, I heard you, I seen you in the library with dude. They didn't have the balls to approach dude. Because now, you got the division. You got the white collar, Wall Street goons, which is the ones that was taking money, and then you got the gangster goons from the inner city.
Right.
The gangster goons would lightweight pump the Wall Street goons, but the Wall Street goons would laugh. So now you got me in the middle, being a former goon, was trying to learn from the white collar.
Smart.
So now when I'm learning from the white collar, the goons is like, yo, instead of going to them, they could come to me. But I will ask them, if you're serious, I'll teach you what I'm being taught. I can't teach you everything, only could teach you what I learned thus far. And that's what made me respected in every prison I stepped foot in.
So when
after the 9th year.
At this
Yeah,
9th
yeah,
year. And after,
yeah.
how much more time did you do after 9?
After 9, I did 3 because I got out early. Okay. They passed the First Step Act, and I got out 4 years earlier.
4 years earlier than you were supposed to.
Yeah, so that was a blessing. So
right,
you know.
Absolutely. And so okay, so now take me to you getting out of the feds. What year was that?
So I got out the feds. I got out March 13, 2019. I will never forget that day.
Oh, so you only been out of prison for less than 2 years now?
Yeah, yep. Going on my 2nd year in March. So, and it was so crazy. Like, Trump passed the law. Trump signed it to the law in December 2018, a couple of days before Christmas. I seen it. Matter of fact, I was in my room. A friend of mine's come banging on my door. Yo, you going home? You going home? So I'm like, huh? So he like, they passed the law. So I go watch
What law
TV.
we talking about?
The First Step Act. That was a law that had various bills combined in one. And one of the bills was the crack law. They made it retroactive. So now, I knew once that law was passed, I already had the time, because they had to re-sentence me. So I already had the time in, it was immediate
So
release.
when you say retroactive, are you meaning that they had to charge you because it was evidence to prove that crack and cocaine was not the same?
Yeah, it wasn't the same. So it was actually it used to be 500 to 1. And then they knocked it down to 100 to 1. So now, by the guidelines changing, I had to get resentenced. And by me getting resentenced, they knocked my sentence down from 16 to 12 and a half. By then, I already been down 12. Right. With the good time, it was 10 and a half. Okay. So I seen it. So when I seen it, I said, oh, I'm going home. A week later, they run in my room, 3 in the morning. Took me and my cellie to the hole looking for a cell phone. I was in a hole for 90 days until March 13th under investigation for a cell phone that they never found, and I walked out from the hole.
That must have been a hell of a feeling to walk to freedom from the hole, huh?
You know what was the best feeling?
Talk to me.
That they never knew that I had that in, because when the legal mail comes, it comes straight from your unit team and they open in front of you. Right. So by the administration scanning my mail, they couldn't scan that mail. So I seen every step that my lawyer was making. So I wasn't calling them because I know they would listen.
Okay.
Now, if they would have knew I was getting out, they'd have expedited the so-called investigation and probably found me guilty for something BS and should be. Took good time and stuff like that.
Which would have hindered your time.
Yeah, it would have hindered my time. Yeah. So I'm laughing the whole time, like, all right. So I end up coming. So when the CO came, it was on a Friday at 2 o'clock. He come, Curry, pack up. You going home. I said, all right. I left everything in the cell went. I walked to R&D.